Not necessarily breaking news, but Jalen Duren won't be signed and traded. I think that's something that we've known for a little bit, and it just kind of cements in that Detroit has Jalen Duren as their number two next to Cade Cunningham on the offensive side of the ball. You can talk all about the defense that you want with Cesar Thompson, where he kind of fits into that role, but when you have Jalen Duren on the floor, he's going to be your second best offensive player, especially looking at what he can become. We got some info from Marc Stein coming out, and it's right below. The Pistons and Jalen Duren have only made modest progress on their talks. And it's not something where Jalen Duren's actively trying to get out of Detroit. I really don't think that's the case. But what's happening is they're very secure in their ways and where they are at this point. The Detroit Pistons only have a certain number they want to pay. Jalen Duren also only has a number that he wants. When you're looking at potential sign-in trades, like I mentioned, that's out the window. And this is the reporting that I trust. Yesterday's live stream, we had Jake Fisher, and we also had Evan Siddery. I don't agree with Evan Siddery. Jake Fisher, since he's been with Marc Stein, writing for the Stein line, that's something that I'm going to definitely agree with. I'm definitely going to be just agreeing with. And this kind of cements in the fact to me that the contracts aren't going to go so sour enough to where JD accepts that qualifying offer. I think we're way far from that point. We would have to be getting closer to October with nothing new going on for that to actually be the case. Just because, I think if he was actually signaling that way, we would be hearing more Detroit's worried, because Detroit would be losing all leverage here if Jalen Duren decided that he wanted to take that qualifying offer. Because if Jalen Duren takes that offer, he gets a no-trade clause, and that means he's going to be stuck on the team. And that's not great for the locker room, especially coming off of a first-seed season. And I actually emailed out to Chaffee Fields, who is Jalen Duren's agent, to try to get some more info on this, because I really want to try to figure things out for myself. I want to be able to say confidently this is what's going on. But we're going to talk about this differently than yesterday because the reports are different. Yesterday, it was that they were progressing towards a contract offer, and they were progressing towards something that would be solidified. And that's why my thumbnail said it's going to happen ASAP, back to Detroit. That was wrong, according to what's going on here from Marc Stein, and this is different than the Jake Fisher article even, and so they're working together. And in journalism, two things that are very opposite ends of the spectrum, there's truth to something, and it's about what does each of those benefit, like whose party benefits from each of those reports. So with this article, it's talking about modest progress. So what we're talking about is not a lot. It's not saying it's super negative. I think that would be a key indicator. We can look at the wording here, because just modest, we're just talking about talks that have kind of been slow rolled. They might have started out slow and maybe they're picking up now, but I mean modest in terms of from where we started to now. I do think that if there was more of a threat of the qualifying offer, we wouldn't be hearing about Detroit not wanting a sign-in trade, because I think that would be absolutely asinine for Detroit to put themselves in a position where you say, okay, accept that. You lose your guy for nothing, and then he could go ball out this year in all that locker room chaos. But then it also does mention Detroit, or Jalen Duren could take that qualifying offer, $9.6 million. Well, let's just talk about the scenario. What if Jalen Duren does accept that? Instead of playing on a contract north of $40 million, or I guess north of the high 30s, you're talking about having $30 extra million, about maybe just over that, to be able to fill out your team and find the pieces you need. But the thing is, at this point in free agency, who are you going to find? Who are you going to find to fill up that, to get to that salary floor? And I don't know exactly what that number is, but even with a SARS contract, that doesn't apply until the following year. So Jalen Duren, once you sign that, you're going to then know what you have to reach for that salary floor. So we have a good number of y'all in here. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you like the stream. Make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe. We try to go live every day. Yesterday was a Lumineers concert in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which was a good time. So we weren't able to put up content then. We put up something earlier. So always check what we're putting out. We're trying to put out content that informs you. It's not just for me. I mean, if it was for me, I could just go and talk to my friends. But I want to make sure that we can get you up-to-date information and just opinions and just statistical analysis. We talked about John Collins' contract on last stream. Posted a clip of that earlier today. So thank you guys for checking that one out. Going forward with this deal, my expectation is that this is still going to take a little bit. And that's where I'm a little bit dumbfounded, because when we're talking about what yesterday's main stream was, like I already said this, it was supposed to be a quick window to get things done, and I was expecting maybe within the next few days. But with this report, I'm not expecting anything substantial to happen in the near future, and I'm really hoping we get some more words of wisdom from somebody around the league that's like familiar with the situation. If we're just relying on what we get, my apologies there. If we're just relying on the info that we get from, not Woj anymore, he retired, but Shams, if we're waiting for Jake Fisher, if we're waiting for Siddery, if we're waiting for even Marc Stein at this point, it's one of those situations where how much do they really know? Because sources and having information in media, especially in sports, it only means so much, because it's only such a small piece of that puzzle, and only so much can get released at a time. So my take on this, it's very clear that Detroit is going to retain Jalen Duren at any cost. There's no other team that can match. There's no other team that can swoop in and save the day and give him the contract he wants. So I just expect this to be a pretty smooth transaction, but we might be waiting a little bit of time. So if there's any questions about this deal, ideas for what the contract could look like, make sure you put these in the comments. We can talk through all of that stuff. But what I wanted to go through right now was we're going to go over to the film room, and we have a complete new setup for this stream. So at the bottom, you're going to notice the ticker where we just have stats, and I noticed that Cade Cunningham, whatever that is before him, the 27.8 number is a little cut off. It's a work in progress. We're trying new stuff out all the time here. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this Jalen Duren 33-point game versus Cleveland back in February, because this is what's going to make and kind of define what a successful contract if it's north of $40 million. Because if you're paying Jalen Duren $40 million and you're getting the player you saw in the playoffs versus Cleveland, it's not going to be worth it. But we got a good sample size during the regular season of what it would be worth. So starting out here, just challenging at the two big lineup, Evan Mobley, being able to finish inside is such a key thing for him. Just because that's a nice move. He goes from one side of the block to the other, and being able to create his own shot off the dribble. And usually you think of shots off the dribble and you think of guards and you think of spacing, you think of all of that. But what he's able to do is crowd the inside and be a big body, being able to bring people in with some sort of gravity. And if he's more consistent in that level, what's going to happen is that's going to open up the court for everyone on the outside. So the more dominant he is on the inside, especially against these big centers, these defensive-minded, former defensive player of the year centers, you're going to be able to do a lot for your team. And here's another kind of drop-off from Toby. Oh, actually, my apologies, drop-off from Asar. And there you see another off-the-dribble move. It's not just a lob. So he's not just the run-and-dunk man like a lot of people have kind of put into existence. So being able to have that finesse over the two bigs, the one pump was great, showed some control. And I'm assuming what we're going to see here is just a nice self-creation look, kind of the first option off into the shot clock from Cade. So nice post-up move, and you can notice that he puts his back to the basket, and that's kind of his primary objective in a lot of these runs. But this is a complete different player than what we saw during the NBA playoffs, because if we saw this Jalen Duren making these passes, making these reads, not looking scared, I would be fine with paying him $44 million. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously, you're putting 33 points up against the best double big lineup potentially in the NBA. Oh yeah. Yeah, being able to go and have that guy who Cade Cunningham has the ability to play off ball, and then you're drawing in defenders to try to stop Jalen Duren. You don't have the ability to give all of, like, look at this right here. We're going to break this one down a little bit more. Jalen Duren here, and I'm pretty sure is that Thomas Bryant. But you see him drawing in the defender. We see Pistons player rolling over, and Evan Mobley had to move over to kind of block that lane. But in that meantime, Cade Cunningham already had the advantage because Mobley had to turn. Mobley had to then work to contest and didn't want to pick up a foul because that's the only thing that would have stopped that play at that point. And then here we go. Just being able to take it in on Evan Mobley with Jarrett Allen right there. I mean, drawing the and one. That's just what we need to see from him all the time. And the fact that we don't, that's what kind of irritates me about Jalen Duren, because it's a situation where he's such a dominant player inside. How are you not able to continue this effort throughout? I'm not trying to harp on JD as well. I think he's a phenomenal basketball player. Just the things that we've seen consistently through the playoffs in these past 2 runs have not been the most, I don't know, beneficial to him. If you're in the comments, I was just about to do a plug, but I'm not going to do that there. That's an awful time for a plug. What we're going to see here is Jalen Duren contesting this shot. Nice block off the backboard. And that's the defensive plays you need to see consistently as well to make sure he can earn that contract. Offense, taking it up, being able to just do the spin cycle past Jarrett Allen through Evan Mobley. That's a beautiful play right there.